So we've got a pretty massive topic to talk about today, and if you looked at the subtitle, it was nice and long. So we've got a lot to get through. Very happy to have these panelists. Let's just start off again. Everyone knows where you're from, but just maybe 2 sentences about your project so everyone has context.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the head of product at Picasso. What we do, well, we started as an interoperability protocol, and along the road to sort of help us build more interoperability deployments, we utilize restaking as a solution. So the first sort of restaking layer that we have live on Solana with an AVS in mainnet production.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Keshav this side. At Zeebu, we are a decentralized... Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so we are decentralized settlement systems. We essentially, to make it easy to understand what Ripple is doing between banks, we facilitate the same way to telecom companies. With the decentralized network, the ZBU protocol enables settlement. In last 1 year, we have processed more than $4 billion worth of transactions and distributed $80 million in the yield for the stakers and participants. We'll discuss more about it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And Liron?
Testing. Liron Hayman, heading BD at Starkware. We developed and pioneered stock proofs, invented them from academia and brought them to production. We power ZK rollups on top of Ethereum. So if you've heard of DYDX, Immutable, Sorare, we power them with our proving services. We also have Starknet, a permissionless public blockchain running as an L2 on top of Ethereum.
Hey, everyone. Good? Okay, awesome. My name is Norbert, Global Growth here at Nubit. Better? We'll see. All right, so Global Growth at Nubit. Our goal, we're offering a one-stop ecosystem solution powered by our core product is a Bitcoin data availability layer. On top of that, we're offering universal bridge to offer interoperability between different chains. And we're just trying to integrate it in Telegram and social apps. So our goal is to bridge that gap between Web2 and Web3, offering a one-stop solution for developers, but also for anyone in a Web3 space to reach the masses.
Awesome, thank you all. Okay, so the concept of shared security sucked up a lot of wind and attention in our industry. Starting around a year ago, and then I think it was probably ETH Denver when it really blew on the scene. ETH Denver was dominated with restaking, right? So it's been 6, 7, 8 months. I'd like to hear from each of you how you think it's changed. What's the state today? What are the challenges now that we realize we're facing? Some thoughts on that. We'll start with Jafar.
Yeah, sure. So I think in the security sector, restaking has been sort of the most innovative solution in the past year or so. Shared security, I'd say that like the largest deployment in production was probably Polkadot back in 2022. They haven't really managed to achieve as much adoption, but as modular as Polkadot is, restaking as a whole allows any AVS to come in, use any token they want, pay however much they want. So it's a lot more modular sort of solution for getting security. And like overall, I think we're still in the discovery phase. It's only been a year since like we have restaking as a narrative. I think on Ethereum, Eigenlayer is dominating in terms of TVL and narrative. And on Solana, we're starting to see multiple restaking protocols go live this year. So we're still very early.
Good to know.
When it comes to the restaking, the number itself speaks. Like within last 1 year, if we cumulatively consider the TVL of the entire restaked asset, it is crossed $13.4 billion across all of the different protocol, right? Which includes Eigenlayer, EtherFi, all of them put together. So first place, everyone has started believing the shared security is really the new future. Apart from that, if you see, the institutions have literally started taking more interest into the shared security because it gives a lot more capital efficiency. The new fresh capitals are started coming in with the shared security as a fundamental. And as a result, recently I have been going through a couple of recent updates. I was talking to one large institutional merchant banker. They mentioned that Nomura, they're one of the arm is Laser Digital. They're officially starting restaking restaked assets as one of the additional opportunity to invest into. They signed up with one or two projects as well. So in reality, it is taking shape. It's the future, and it is bringing a lot more capital efficiency on first place, right? Other side, if we see the fundamental benefit, it is giving up real value addition to the ecosystem. The new projects who really need economical security, who lack resources, they can actually build on the reliable trust network of the Ethereum. They did not have to reinvent the wheel, don't have to wait for infrastructures to go live, but they can literally talk about the fundamental problem which they are solving, and they can go and represent and start talking about the shared security, which gives the project a real strength. So by that way, it is bringing in security, trustability, scalability for a lot many new ecosystem participation, and it also gives a lot more. You can say the liquidity, the capital efficiency is there. So yeah, I'm pretty much bullish on that.
Those are great points. Great points. Especially about institutions, I think is very interesting as well. They're attracted to it. Liron?
So yesterday I saw a panel where the person with the least spicy take had to eat a chili. So I will be the spicy one here. Maybe we won't actually eat the chili. Make it more interesting, but it's also my personal beliefs. I'm actually incredibly bearish restaking for three reasons. Economics, security, and utility. Testing. So
if it gets noisy, I think separate them. I think that's the key.
Those off? Okay. So let's go through each one. Economics, let's call it. So if I have my ETH staked to run a validator on Ethereum, and you have your own chain XYZ, and you want to say, hey, just restake it for this chain as well. I now have. I don't want to risk like the smart contract code, the operational risks around me earning my small yield from your new chain while exposing my risks to slashing. It's not interesting enough for me. And another thing is security-wise, if you manage to do this at scale, you sort of want to decouple between custody of the staked assets, which you can hold, but then allow somebody else to actually run the validator code, which has complications, whatever. There are many teams trying to solve this problem. I don't think it's fully solved, especially when the vision of restaking is to do this for dozens of chains. And then the final point is, often when you're running your own chain, you want utility for your token to build a community, to have governance, and restaking basically says you actually don't need your own token. Some people say this is good. I'm just saying that I think that this is a weakness that also restaking sort of introduces.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between the two.
Okay.
Test. All right. Yeah, it's my voice.
I think it might be where you're sitting.
I think it's me.
Yes, where you're sitting.
What about now?
It's location.
All right. Oh, I guess that's what it is. So I feel like I'm somewhere in between the two, where there's definitely been a massive demand. I feel like looking at EigenLayer, how they managed to like have billions of dollars of assets staked, but at the same time, so there's demand for it, for yield side, but also there's a lot of farmers just coming in for the airdrops one way or another. They want to earn something for their assets. But at the end of the day, on the risk side, I feel like looking at institutions hasn't really entered the way where we were kind of expecting. I feel like both for staking and restaking, both on Bitcoin and or Ethereum as well, were early, but without actual governance or any sort of like legislations that are going out, they are not going to enter the space. So like it gives like positive sides where retail investors are interested, but institutions are like not really yet ready to enter because of transparency, but also the risk they could take on being pretty much in a decentralized space.
And every extra smart contract is risk. I want to go back to the hot take, Liron. So if that's your, I love the 3 points that you made, and I think it's a great thesis, and I think everyone's thinking about those if they're not saying them out loud. Do you think then that restaking has a niche? Maybe it's applicable in a certain way. It's not supposed to replace, it's not supposed to stop all new L1s or L2s. Is there a particular niche you think it can find?
That is a good question. So I would say if, let's go through those three concerns. So if you don't necessarily have your own token, it's a really good way to bootstrap security for your chain. And so there are many reasons not to have your own token. And then if it's some sort of fork of existing battle-tested audited code, you also remove the economic and security risks as well. So I think in those unique cases where like, yeah, it's not your own token, you're forking something else existing, it's a really great way to bootstrap things. The one caveat, this gets really technical, but like, it doesn't also help with optimistic rollups. Like if the chain you're trying to secure is optimistic, the security assumptions around optimistic rollups and optimistic app chains specifically requires a significant stake that is actually correlated to the amount of TVL that you want to secure. So basically, if it's not an optimistic rollup, you don't want your own token, and you're forking some existing code, sure, that's a niche.
Okay, I was trying to think of an example. I wasn't smart enough to come up with it off the top of my head, but I'm going to think about that. Okay, cool. Let's talk a little bit about the TVL. You mentioned the TVL. Restaking projects, that's the game they're playing. It's how you build legitimacy and credibility in the market. Do you think that's driven certain projects down a certain path? Do you think that's preventing newcomers now because it's tougher to bootstrap TVL when you've got 30 plus billion already being staked? Is that a barrier to entry for newcomers?
I don't think it's a barrier, because if I go with my journey last 1 year in Zeebu, we are talking to so many different institutional, because Zeebu started its journey with the institutional focused product. It's a product for telecom as a first, and for investments, we have been talking to all of the large institutions. So now, if I relate the same journey with Athena or Blast, the way they were succeeded in bringing in large TVL with the restaked assets, and they were able to generate their new derivative bond, USDE. So if they could have taken a route there where they come and say that, okay, ENA is my new token, you started believing in it, I will create an ecosystem around it, they could have taken years. The way they bootstrap entire project, the speed at which they came out, right? Definitely it was backed by some of the big OGs of the industry, but for institution and even for all of us, it makes a lot more sense that on the very secure network, which is Ethereum, the biggest trust network, which is scaled. So it is practically, it takes a toll for saying that I will create a parallel validation system, which is as good as Ethereum or even a Bitcoin. So it needs time, money, energy, community, everything on one side. Second thing, now the assets have become so much pricier, the top assets. So no one wanna take a bet in this particular market scenario where everyone is expecting to stay bullish, that what if now I need to hedge that, what if I give up my Ethereum or Bitcoins for something new, where the probability of going Bitcoin higher or Ethereum higher is much, much likely to happen. Plus, failing, the risk of getting value erosion is not there, because now it has been proven, the SECs have given approval in the ETF. So institutional monies are flowing in this asset. So it's not likely to be ignored. So to straightly answer your question, so if I am a new project, I have a certain utility with me. So it makes very easy for community to get convinced that, okay, you bring your whichever assets you have. I don't want your assets to be there, but for my use case, I need economical security. So the secure networks like EigenLayer, EtherFi, those are like third party. like let's say a custodian, and slashing risk can be avoided. I can say that there are no risk on the slashing. I need TVL to bring a lot more attention on my project. It increases credibility. It increases trustworthiness as well. We still need to see how eigenlayer goes into production. No other AVSs are paying yield right now. Only the EigenDA, which is their storage, is paying the real yield, and it can be touch and feel. But if we see the comparable parallel implementation into different chains, so the way Ethena, Blast, and so many different projects are coming up, it makes your project launchpad much likely easy. You don't have to convince for new token, which is very much risky. You have to wait for it to get listed, build community around it. Compare it to that when you go ahead and say that, okay, my token is having economical security backed by some of the top assets. And to give them, your new token can become an incentive token, like the same route of Ethena, where ENA become the economical security. And you see the speed at which ENA token is ranked right now, the adoption of ENA in itself, which is purely a utility, not a utility, but a reward token, but still it is holding up a value. The TVL, which Ethena was able to secure. So we are going on similar route. Like in Zeebu, we started our transaction. We have a real world yield. So we take 2% fees from the businesses. So we have processed 4 billion in transaction. So the real yield comes, which is in dollar value. We have earned $80 million so far and distributed 42 million yield to the stakers of Zeebu stakers.
That's amazing.
Now, with the shared security model, when we started offering the product to institution that, okay, you don't have to take risk in ZBU or whatever token, you bring your preferred asset, and it was very warm welcome for us. So from my personal experience, I can say the restaking will enable new project launch much easier and credible as well.
Very bullish, very exciting, very optimistic. Let's touch on AVS, the AVS market. So I think Eigen has said that by January they want something like 350 or 400 AVSs. You've got the symbiotic AVS market. Where do you guys think that growth in the AVS market affects these projects or adoption or trajectory? How critical do you think it is that the AVS market gets developed and is robust over the next 6 months to 12 months? Any thoughts or insights there?
So in the AVSs, it makes a lot more economical sense for AVS to run the one node and provide economical security delegation to many more projects, accumulate yield from them. And on the other side, the investor is also having choice of distributing it out based on their own risk appetite. Like if I'm an investor, I don't believe into slashing, I can select those projects to delegate where the slashing risk is not there. So for AVS, on one side, it has become much institutional business, wherein they can set up a node and start encashing their credibility for many different projects. So it brings additional avenue for them to generate yield, attract investment, and remonetize their treasuries, which they have already long on different assets, right? But on the other side, it is also coming up with a risk of getting this node runner centralized, because it will create a cluster of few selected node runners who are eventually providing economical security to many different projects. Now, in the deployment, if some smart contract vulnerability or let's say the validator gets slashed, so the economical security across all of this different projects gets completely out of it. And that can collapse those projects. So in that, we have to yet to see some new innovation where this can be prevented. When your single AVS is providing economical security to many, we have to see some sort of evolution around it, or we all have to invent it in a way that the other projects can remain safeguarded due to the slashing event on one particular project.
Great points. Those are great points. Jafar, anything from your perspective on this?
Yeah, I mean, like if we want to live in a world where there's so many different AVSs, we do need to work on like getting a dynamic, like robust model that you were talking about, especially on the incentive side. So it's like if you have all these AVSs running and the incentives they're providing to the operators, the restakers, isn't really sustainable, like how many more AVSs can we onboard before we like have to like kill these sort of AVSs which aren't paying their dues? So I think just defining an incentive model between AVSs and operators is something that we do need to iron out first.
Awesome point. Gentlemen, at the end? No? Okay. Let's go into some project-specific questions. And if anyone has a burning question from the audience, we will take it. So if you guys have anything, you can raise your hand. But we'll go one by one. We'll start with Nubit. So Nubit's approach to tokenomics is unique. How has restaking influenced the economic model and stability of Nubit's token? Have you seen any unexpected outcomes?
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit more about like what our economics itself looks like for staking. It's not really one-sided. We have a supply and a demand side as well. So any project we're able to partner with, they are able to stake pretty much Bitcoin, and they're going to get their Nubit token in return. So that's from the supply side. On the demand side, where anyone who is able to work with us and using our data availability services, they are pretty much paying with their Nubit. So pretty much it's both sides back and forth instead of just being a one-sided where we just keep pumping the supply where it's really not sustainable. So we're able to have both sides. So it's not really the way where we're able to incentivize the people to come on in, but they're able to stake their Bitcoin. So with that regard, it's much easier and much cheaper as well because Bitcoin is a much more secure, inflammatory asset. But on the other side, all the projects that are coming in, they are definitely incentivized to use it. So I feel like there's a win-win situation where both the project and both us are able to see and pretty much work closely together, or collaborate in that one. And yeah, like pretty much like super recently, like partnered with a project where we're kind of entering the Ton ecosystem more, where most of them ecosystem is based around tokens, but it's not sustainable. So I feel like all those projects are coming in, getting on our DA layer, and they can actually monetize their project more while staying secure by Bitcoin.
That's awesome. If we have any questions on Nubit, I'll take them at the end. Jafar, given Picasso's focus on interoperability, how does restaking fit into the broader picture of cross-chain functionality?
So our approach for restaking was very experimental. I'd say it still is. We specifically work with implementing the IBC protocol on networks. So for those of you who don't know, this is a transfer protocol that's trust minimized, decentralized, and sort of has no intermediaries. And we wanted to implement this on Solana. So we already have this on Ethereum in production, but on Solana, you couldn't natively establish IBC due to some technical issues that I'm not going to get into. But we saw sort of launching an AVS as like this bridge is basically an AVS, right? And potentially we could do this on other networks too, which don't support IBC. So like for us, our main point was just getting IBC across these different networks, and restaking was literally the solution for this. So we use an emulated client, which is what we're calling it, where like we have a chain inside of Solana. It's like kind of a side chain, and this is being secured by the restaking layer. So expanding this to other networks that don't support IBC natively, like Tron and other L1s, would be something that we're looking at.
Be interesting. Yeah, very interesting to see. Okay, cool. Let's go to, we'll go to Liron here. So Liron, Starkware is at the forefront of scaling solutions with StarkNet, obviously. How do you see restaking playing a role in enhancing StarkNet's capabilities? This is a really interesting question for you based on your 3 points earlier.
I didn't prepare. I didn't look at the questions, so it's a good question. For us, we see the scaling of like prolific app chains coming through aggregation layers. Whatever, it's a longer discussion if they're complementary or an alternative to AVSs. But basically, you spin up, let's say you have a dozen app chains. They all share the same proof, the same Stark proof that we generate. We recursively prove, like join all the jobs from all the different app chains together and settle one proof on Ethereum. And then every single app chain still gets the security, the finality once the proof arrives on Ethereum. And you don't need security through staking, you can get through security through the proof generation. You have your own consensus mechanism for the chain, but the security on the Ethereum level comes from the proof. There are economic benefits to this because the gas costs to verify a proof are roughly fixed, if I oversimplify things. So for me to add a marginal app chain with its transactions to this proof, it actually reduces the gas costs per chain for everybody. So, yeah.
Very cool. Okay, and Keshav, Zeebu has a strong community governance model, as you alluded to before. How does restaking integrate with or enhance your governance framework? Have you seen any significant shifts in how decisions are made as a result?
So right now we are coming up with our alpha version for the governance. The waitlist is going on. We are inviting community and making awareness spreaded for what Zeebu is, from where the revenues are coming in. And we are strong advocate of real world yields, because the yield, we have seen the emissionary yield when we talk about restaking, the community and everything. So the restaking fundamental is completely running on real world yield generation aspect. Now with the restaked asset, the restaked derivatives, which is the new asset class coming out, and based on that, the real interest have started sparking. From there, we started working on our governance model. So what we are doing, we are inviting institutions, large node runners, and validators to come and be a part in the Zeebu validation services. Our current revenue is 2% on the transaction. Every day we are processing 20 to 25 million US dollar in the transaction value. But now we have a challenge because the telecom companies wants to use more. They have an extraordinary demand. So in next 12 months, we need to process 14 billion in the transaction volume. Now to do that, we need 3 billion in TVL to effectively settle all of these invoices in real time. That's where we can maintain our originality, that instant real-time settlements company. To do that thing, if we go with a route that let's believe Zeebu, take a risk on Zeebu, and then you stake it out, it's again depends on the risk persona. So we came out with the restaking principle. We are inviting institutions and liquidity partner that they provision their liquidity on balancer pool or whichever decentralized exchange they want to, in their own preferred asset class, and they restake their liquidity token into the protocol. So the liquidity, whenever gets utilized into the settlements, they will earn 40% of the revenue. So it's a real revenue sharing, and the yields are getting paid into stables, USDT or USDC. So that's where it is. The restaking is giving opportunity for us to scale our platform, the governor, and based on that, the governance participation increased a lot. We launched our waitlist 21 days back. Right now, as we speak, 40,000 community members have already shown interest. They are part of the waitlist and they want to stake their LP token and be a part in the governance. And we are title sponsor here in token 2049. Tomorrow, from tomorrow onwards, we will enable the staking. So looking at the addresses, their history, and the liquidity available in them, it looks like we'll be easily able to reach to our targeted requirement in the TVL side.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Very bullish. That's fantastic, gentlemen. Okay, we'll just take a pause for a moment and see if there's any questions from the audience for any one of these panelists. Yes, here.
Hi, everyone. So my question is, and bear with me, it might be in bits and pieces, how much do you think is there fraud in the restaking space, given the majority of the you said $30 billion TVL is there, and if I looked at the TVL data, so the pattern is a lot of these TVL in restaking platforms like EtherFi and everywhere else is coming because slashing is not enabled. There's a lot of points farming. And if you even look at some other data and talk to a few people, it's mostly DeFi boutique firms or mercenary capital, and the retail participant is very small in terms of perspective. Now, if something like, let's say, Terra Luna, or let's some major bug was to be found, or let's say whenever slashing is enabled, and that the retail participant, they don't probably even knows what slashing is and the concept of eigenlayer. So I see somewhere that there could be impacts of cascading effects to the whole paradigm itself. And on top of that, a lot of things that are promised by this whole thing. I think, as Liron said, that there are few things that economic security as a meme was also something that was said by Anatoly from Solana, where a lot of things like where you need app chain use cases or L1 kind of things, roll-ups also give you maybe better security or as much as security, then economic security sort of becomes like for a very niche sort of use cases, right? So what are your thoughts on all of these things? Or is it like too overhyped as in whole thing? Or is it more like, let's wait and see what happens?
I just completely agree. So let the others.
I mean, in terms of like the TVL being fraudulent, I wouldn't say that it is. Like at the end of the day, people have their money there deposited, so it's like all on chain. Now, in terms of protocols using assets, which wasn't really in the restaking world, like restaking with an LRT is just, then it gets a bit too Ponzi-nomic. But overall, I do think the TVL has like been steady over the past few months. But then when it comes to slashing going live, then yeah, it is going to be a big problem, especially when like the user on the L1 has sort of nothing to lose, and if they get slashed on the L2 on the restaking layer, they wouldn't really care much.
Just to add one more, but there is that loop. So you stake, restake, then you put that LRT again in a lending protocol. You borrow more ETH, and there is so majority of the DeFi right now is also stablecoin yield strategy, which is if you have seen the Morpho Vault on SUSD and DAI, which has almost $450 million, because it's doing that looping, and then also same thing with ETH as well. As long as your borrow rates are below the staking rates, you deposit staking in training loops again. And that's more than 50% of TVL.
So yeah, thoughts on the size of risk of looping or rehypothecating?
So realistically, if you see historically in the crypto industry, we have not seen the first mover adoption by the institution when the restaking fundamental came in. So as you rightly mentioned, the first most exposure is been taken by large institution boutique firms, because they understand everyone is a large size holder right now in ETH, BTC, everything. Now, the slashing is not enabled, you are right, but eventually the ecosystem will, the project itself will come up with their own regulation, and the AVSs will try to educate, because there are two different roles, right? So AVS will try to educate the delegators to make their credibility intact. So it is bringing check and balances, because if slashing event happens, the credibility of that individual AVSs will be at a stake. That's one particular side. Second thing, if you go beyond eigen layer and some of this traditional layer, the first movers, so the Ethena kind of player came in with a complete different implementation, which is opening up a way that your principal asset is earning yield for you, but in the same time, it is also now in allowing you not to just inflate by accumulating more tokens and intrinsically the price goes down, but it is giving delegated to some other projects who need it as an economical security, and that is giving additional yield. So principally you are already earning a yield from one side. So the restakers, it's a technical product, so you have to understand and choose wisely where you want to delegate and in which segment you want to put, but it gives you a real opportunity to earn more yield from the emission which is happening across entire industry. So that gives a perspective for everyone that you take principal exposure on blue chip assets, and then you take the earning opportunity for multiple different projects which are coming up.
Awesome. Thank you for the questions. Very thoughtful responses. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your insights. That was very interesting to me. Hopefully the audience enjoyed it as well. How about a round of applause for our panelists? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. You're a fantastic host.